Welcome to another episode of Charge the Line with your host Roger Narvaez and my good friend Tony Perez. Today we have somebody that we've all known for a while. Actually, I've known this guest for several years. We actually played football against each other back in the day, and needless to say, he was an awesome athlete back then. One of the guys that we definitely had to keep an eye on and have on our radar. And throughout the years, he's excelled and exceeded in many things. His most recent accomplishment is, climbing the ranks at a very young age and becoming assistant chief in the fire department. He's overseeing the training operations right now in our department. And so today's episode, we bring to you Chief Belyou. What's going on, Billy?
Man, great to be here. I know we've been talking about bringing me on for a while, but we have to make sure those schedules align.
It's never easy, man. That's the thing. Like most of the people we bring on the shows, definitely, we try to reach out to people that are doing exceptional things. And that being said, busy schedules come along with that. Yeah. Even now, Tony's still texting, and Billy was on his phone before, and we're all trying to get things situated. But I'm glad we could all sit down and get together.
Yeah, for sure. Phone is turned off right now, so y'all got my full attention.
You know what, man? That reminds me. I didn't even. Where's mine at? Shit. Oh, well, I think I left it over there, so that's a good thing. Right here. Oh, grab it for me, T. Yeah. I always forget. I put mine on silent, so. Because I've had a couple of times where, whoops, it pops up. But, man, this morning I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, shit, I have to reschedule again because at work I worked overtime. And so yesterday I get in my truck and it's dead. And I'm like, what the hell? But it's not like dead, like lights coming on and it just won't start. It's like completely dead. So I got a battery in there this morning. But then it's one of these newer, it's a 2021 and they're all computerized now. Yeah. So now with the system, it's like you put the battery in, but now it doesn't just turn on.
Yeah.
It actually it's something called a battery management system. Mm-hmm. You have to leave the key in the ignition, leave the car alone for like 8 hours for it to reprogram itself to the battery, and then you can come back and start it. Yeah, so it's shit's crazy, man. Technology, we talked about it last episode. It can be good, but sometimes it can be a pain in the ass.
So your truck is still at the station?
It's still at the station right now. Yeah, I got the guys looking over it, so we're good. But before we go any further, we like to throw some of our guests a hypothetical question, and Tony's usually the one to go to for that. So. T, shoot away, man.
All right, Billy. I'm going to ask Billy, but then you get to answer also.
Okay, cool.
So we just do this sometimes just to our audience get to know you a little bit better. But my hypothetical question for you, Billy, is if you could have one superpower, what would that superpower be?
Ooh, good question. I think I'll have my superpower would be invisibility.
Oh,
right. Because I like to learn from people. So I think the best way to learn from people is to be like that fly on the wall.
Fly on the wall. I was gonna say
right. So to be able to get a real feel for how people are, how they interact with other people, and how they make their decisions and all that stuff, but without having that microscope on them. If I can be invisible, I feel like I can learn so much more from people. And them be more authentic whenever I'm trying to learn that, right? So I think the ability to be invisible to me will be, man, the things that you can accomplish or that you can learn from people and the relationships you can build off of that will be powerful. But of course, you got to be with every superpower comes a responsibility, right? So as long as you're not taking advantage of that situation, I think you can learn a lot. So,
there you go.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, and both you guys could probably relate to this because as chiefs in the department, guys they're not showing you. Oftentimes, they're not showing you the realness. A lot of times, they're kind of putting up the good act, right? Sure. And so that's hard. I'm sure that can get hard to read.
It's funny you say that because like so everyone will be complaining about this one guy, whoever, right? I could name a few of them. Oh, he's horrible. He's so horrible on scene. He's rude to patients. Is this and that. And I say, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show up to every call he's at. I'm going to show up. And so I start showing up at these calls like, man, that guy's the nicest guy, the
Yeah.
best bedside manner I've ever seen. He's the
Yeah.
nicest. So you recognize that people act different sometimes
sure.
when you're around. That invisibility,
Yeah.
you know, they don't know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So
they
that
don't
would
know
be-
you there.
yeah.
You get the real them.
Yeah,
You know,
authenticity.
very authentic.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, like it's true. Like we put that uniform on in the fire department, and I just talked to the cadets about this. You put on that uniform, and you represent this fire service. You represent this organization. You know, so you almost have to strip your own identity to fit into the identity of the fire department, right? And early on, a lot of guys are good at that, right? But as you grow as a person, as a man, as a woman, you start trying to let your own identity kind of come out within that fire department. That's when you start seeing, or within your organization. So that's when you start seeing people. You're like, man, why is this person doing these things? Well, that's the real them coming out.
Right.
They feel comfortable.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, that's what's scary when you have rookies and cadets
Mm-hmm.
and they start displaying that as soon as they come out, because then it's like, whoa. Like, you're not even trying hard right now to, sugarcoat or hide these little faults that you have. You're just blatantly putting them out there, So that can definitely.
It's a hard concept too, like for them to recognize, like you represent the organization, like at all times. Your neighbor, you're driving down the street, whatever it is, whatever you're doing, you're in the grocery store. You may have the uniform on, you may not have the uniform on, and we all know it. Like when the headlines hit, and it's like a firefighter gets a DWI or whatever. It's not just like,
They make sure and put
it's
the
like
city,
firefighter,
sure,
whatever. You get in trouble and your identity is thrown out there. It's not John Doe, it's firefighter. So
Corpus Christi Fire Department
right
guy
and
did
did this,
Exactly.
and so it's like that representation is with you all the time, and so it's you need to recognize that. And,
I've always tried to and I just had this discussion the other day with somebody, because in jiu-jitsu, as a instructor, unfortunately, as in any place of power, there are guys that prey on their students, right? Or not even prey, but they allow themselves to get drawn into inappropriate relationships, inappropriate things. And I always tell my guys, like, when you are a coach for me, you have to remember that carries some weight. Like, you're not only representing yourself, you're representing this team, especially if you're a children's coach. Like, if you're a kids coach, I want parents to feel comfortable that they're coming here and dropping their children off, and we have them under our guidance for X amount of time, and they can safely, be confident in that.
For sure.
But that's also a reason why I've always tried to protect myself in a manner of, like, when I have private lessons with women, it's never alone. It's never when the gym's closed. Not because I'm worried about what, can happen necessarily, but I just don't want there to be any kind of, anything that can be said or misinterpreted.
misconceptions, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, it can happen. And part of that is because as soon as it happens, like you said, it's getting put out there. Firefighter does this, Corpus Christi firefighter does this. And that's something that I've always had to kind of, along with fighting and all the shit talk and the promotion that gets at it, I still got to remember my primary job, the one that pays the bills, is the fire department. So.
But that's also a skill that has to be learned, right? Like, you don't come off the street. You came off. Let's say we hired these new cadets. They come off the street and they've never had to represent an organization.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a learning curve for them to have that awareness as they're going out. So, for instance, like the union came over and they talked to the cadets, right? And they passed out CCFD hats. So a lot of firefighters, they wear their hats off duty, but they don't wear their uniform off duty.
Right.
So as they're passing these hats out, I'm kind of off. I'm not really talking to them, but I'm like, let me interject. I said, with that hat comes a responsibility.
Right.
When you put that hat on and you go out to the grocery store, everyone's looking at you.
Yes.
And as you become more and more involved in the organization, you don't even need that hat on. And people recognize that you're a firefighter.
Right.
You start looking like a firefighter. You start looking like you can tell that this person's everywhere I go still. I don't have nothing on fire department. Well, I wear these pants all the time, so maybe that gives it away. But I go somewhere. Are you in the military? Are you a firefighter? Or are you a police officer?
Yeah.
Just how I look.
Just the way you carry
the
yourself.
bald head. Sometimes I have a mustache. You know how I talk to people. Like I'm very like direct. So
Hey, what about like you guys both have kids in youth sports? Like something happens at like kid goes down
immediately,
like, everybody.
Yep.
Like
Immediately look.
He's a medic. He's a medic. Like,
Yeah.
going to work, and it's like we're medics. We're all medics, but it's like if I don't have my airway bag, my trauma bag, like I'm not without that.
Call 911.
Yeah, without my equipment, like
Yeah.
I've got the training. I mean, I can recognize like, hey, he's hurt or he's not hurt.
Yeah.
But man, we're the first. They'll call you out from the stands, like come down here.
Oh, for sure.
You're
Yeah.
a medic. Come down here. And it's
sure.
like it's got a fracture. You guys need to call 911.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in those situations, I always just try to keep the calm, right?
Yeah.
Like now,
Yeah,
it does do something for them when you show up, and it's like even if you don't do anything, just okay, this is what's gonna happen. Explain the situation.
Yeah, you're
contact
right.
911.
You're right.
You know, that's a. I think that's gonna be the biggest thing because you're right. I mean, if something's broken, there's not much we can do other than just stabilize it and keep them calm. But yeah, that's
in those situations for me, I just advocate for the athlete, the kid, right? Because a lot of the coaches, they have their own little agenda, and they're like, he's fine. I'm like, hold on. I push. You know how we do. You push through. Everybody get back. Yeah. Stand over there. Let me check him out, and I talk to the kid. And I'm like, I'm advocating.
Is he fine?
You're fine. Take your time. You don't have to get up because the coach wants you in the game because he wants to win this elementary school ring for football.
Well,
like none of this stuff matters.
But see, that's the thing is you come from a different time, a time like I said, we played football together. So I'm sure in that time, coming up, like that is the kind of behavior that we saw. We did what the coaches wanted, and we, got chastised or got belittled or berated for not. He's faking it, or I remember I twisted a knee. I see twisted. I dislocated the damn thing, and I came back after 4 weeks. It was a 12-week injury. I came back, and even then, when I came back, like I was still getting some flack. Yeah. I remember one of the coaches said, "We have guys on the team that don't know the difference between being hurt and injured." And I was like,
that was a line from a movie.
Yeah,
everyone stole it.
I'm like, holy shit, like, dude, I just came back 8 weeks early, and the great thing at the time we were playing is we had a trainer. He's actually training at Coach Luna, Saul Luna. Shout out to Coach Luna because he is the only one that I've ever seen at the high school level. Now I'm sure they're around, but at that time it was like a trainer. What did they do? They just taped you up, put ice on it, right?
Yeah.
He would actually do training stuff, right? Yeah. And I remember him one time we had a kid, our starting linebacker, dislocate his shoulder, and the defensive coordinator was trying to get him back going the game, and Coach Luna and him were about to throw blows. We were on the sidelines just watching all wide-eyed, and because he was not backing down, But like you said, we've seen that experience. So that being said, let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. Let's talk about. I know you've got that experience in as an athlete, but let's tell everybody a little about yourself.
So, I'm born and raised in Corpus, right? But both of my parents are from Los Angeles, so they come from one of the largest cities in the world, right? So, and of course, they weren't raised in the best parts of LA. Right. They were my mom was raised in Watts and my dad was in South Central. Okay. So these are movies. These are places that they're infamous and they make movies about. And it was during those times that they made these movies about.
Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, all those good ones. All the classics.
So the Menace to Society, like my dad was old dog probably in Menace to Society. My dad was he was a gang member. Okay. Going off of his story, it was by necessity. If you see my dad now, he wears glasses, like he looks just like
harmless.
He looks harmless, but it's funny because one of his buddies just came down. It was his best friend, and he just came down from LA. He's living in. Where's he living in? He's in Flower Bluff right now, so they're kind of like winter texting type deal. So he came down, and I've always heard about his name is Guy, and I always heard about him. So I'm like, man, I need to go talk. I said, I need to talk to you. Like, I need to get your perspective on everything. Right? I've always heard my dad's stories and my mom's stories, but I need to hear your stories. So he came down, and so we're just kind of chatting it up, and he's telling me like, my dad was a terrorist dude over there. Like
gangster.
Yes, like the things that he told me that he did. I've heard the stories, but now I'm hearing it from him. And what's funny is, and I told him this, I said, y'all have told me the same stories, and y'all get to a certain point in the story, and they both like, I can't say no more.
Yeah, they like
They're like,
start shutting down.
yeah, he's like, I can't. I'm like, my dad does the same thing. I said, so I'm smart enough to know what
that
happened.
means. Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, it's crazy, you know.
So did they move? Did they move down to Corpus? I mean, because that's
my dad
quite a big jump.
So my mom moved to Corpus. My grandfather's from Sinton, so that's my connection to this area, right? So my grandfather's from Sinton. He's a Duhart. If you're in the fire department and you make calls on Duharts, I am a Duhart.
Oh,
my mom's maiden name is Duhart.
That explains it. No.
You know, so the infamous Duharts in this area. That's my family, and so my grandfather moved here from LA, and my mom was like 16 or 17. She ended up going to Moody. She ended up getting pregnant at 16, so she had my oldest brother at 16.
Okay.
Right? So my dad moved here for two reasons. One, because my mom moved here and they were dating in high school up in LA, and for two, he was about to get he had his name X'd out at a park, which meant that he was about to get killed within a week.
Oh shit.
So he had to make that decision.
Yeah.
Do I stay and die in a week?
Right.
Or do I leave?
Right.
So he left. And
how old was he at that time?
they're the same age, so their birthday
About 16, 17?
February 2nd is my dad and February 12th is my mom. So they're the same age. So 16, 17 years old. Moves to Corpus, starts working. He doesn't enroll in school. He just starts working.
Nice.
Right?
My daughter's born February 12th.
12th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my mom's birthday. So so they start having kids, and luckily my mom and dad, we were raised right next to my grandparents. We lived right next door to them. So raised in a sort of dysfunctional but loving family.
I think we all were.
You know, and
Yeah.
having that aspect, but then also having that foundation of if we needed stability, we can go right next door and my grandparents are there. Right. So, growing up playing sports, I've always loved football. Was my first love. I tell my wife that. I'm like, you know, I love you, but football is my first love. You know, so but I was chunky growing up, man.
Okay.
I was chunky, had a terrible diet. You know, I'll be running thinking that I'm just this bad athlete and the wind is blowing in my face, but I'm just a slowpoke, as slow as can be. You know, so
That's funny because your son's got speed, right?
yes, my son's like my brother is the natural athlete.
Okay.
My oldest brother, he's a natural at anything.
Right.
Anything he does, he's just natural. He just picks it up. Baseball, all-star team. First time he played.
Yeah.
Basketball, he's dunking in the 9th grade, you know, and I can
Yeah.
barely even touch the net, you know. And he's shorter than me.
Wow.
Strength, natural strength. I remember we were lifting. We started getting into weights. My dad was always into weights, right? He probably has like 19 or 20-inch arms
Oh
right
shit.
now, right?
Okay.
So my dad used to always lift weights, so we'd go in there, kind of mess around. And one time I remember going to middle school when he started kind of learning weights like the middle school coaches teach you, you know. And I put on like, I don't know, 95 pounds on the bench, and I couldn't get it. And my brother's like, you can't lift that? He goes in and lifts like 250 pounds in the 8th grade, dude. I'm like,
That's crazy.
what? You know? How? You know? And he was like, you just lift it. That was always his thing. You just do it.
Just do it.
You know? How do you jump that high? You just jump. I'm like, dude, that's
So
you're an
he
anomaly.
always had those gifts.
Yeah. So moving along, as I got to high school, I was still short, still a little overweight, but then I hit this massive growth spurt from 9th grade to 10th grade. That summer, I grew like 7 inches, right? So I thinned out, and then now I had that weight off of me, and I started being able to, you know, be a little more athletic. You know?
Right.
Unfortunately, that summer, my first day on varsity, my sophomore year, I break my wrist.
Oh shit.
This is still the only football injury that I have that lingers. Like I feel it right now.
Yeah.
It's still the only football, and I've probably had concussions that I didn't really say
didn't
nothing
even
about.
realize, yeah.
I got a screw in my ankle. I broke pinkies, fingers. Everything's been broken. Like it's probably broke 7 bones in my life, right? So I break it, which was probably the best thing that happened to me because it kind of sidelined me and kind of pushed me back. But it let me know that, yeah, I can do this, right?
Right.
So a real big important important aspect of my story, and I tell this story a lot, is there's a hill at Moody. This was in the off season, sophomore going into junior year. There's a hill at Moody. It's in the backside behind the baseball fields. We call it like the freshman practice field or whatever. It's a shitty field, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just full. It's just not even graded right. It's just where the freshmen practice,
Yeah,
right?
just a plot of dirt.
Yeah, but during that off season, we would run that hill, right? And at the time, I didn't have that work ethic. Like as soon as things got challenging, I would just be like, man, I don't like this. Like I'm done. I had a conversation with myself one morning before, because we did practice in the morning, off season practice. I had a conversation with myself. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make myself pass out on that hill. That's how hard I'm gonna go today. I'm gonna take it to the limit. Right.
What made you have that? I mean, was it what
I was tired of being defeated by work. I'm like, dude, why? Like I enjoy football, but I don't enjoy the work aspect of it.
Right.
And I didn't want to go to the weight room. I didn't want to do all that. I just want to go play, you know? And I'm like, if I'm going to get better, and I had the dream of going to the NFL. I'm like, if I'm going to go to the league, I need to figure this out. So I get on that hill that day and I'm running. And I'm first every time, right? First. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, you know what? I can't be defeated. I finished that workout, dude. I felt my brain literally change that day. My whole mindset changed that day. Right there. From that point on, I'm like, nothing could defeat me. Hard work cannot defeat me. Nothing can stop me.
And that was kind of the defining moment for you.
Defining moment, literally, like that day was like the defining moment.
And you know, it's funny how that happens sometimes, because like some people have to have something happen in their lives, right? Some catastrophic event, something with their health, and then sometimes it's just a switch that flips. And I compare that to me being in the fire department, right? Like I never had an issue outside. I never, as far as my fighting career and jiu-jitsu, like I was always a hard worker, football, always busting my ass. But in the department, I found for a lot of years, I was good with just kind of being the workhorse, right? Like being that guy that not really taking initiative, just really always down to work, always down to do the job, but not really putting any extra in, not spending time trying to be better. And then it was just one day, man, I don't know what it was. It wasn't something that happened. It wasn't, somebody that told me something. It was just one day I just had this epiphany, like, man, you could do so much more, you know? And once that switch flips, like it's up to you to keep it on.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to shut it off.
Yeah. I coach my kids. I coach youth sports and stuff, and really, I know a lot, but I really try to be more of the motivator, right, on the team, and kind of I try to find a kid that, you know, that's not the star kid, and I try to build them up. That's just me. I think I get that from my mother. I try to rehab people, right? That's just my thing. So I've always tell these kids, like, take that switch, turn it all the way up, and break it.
Nice.
There's no going back.
Nice.
Because that's what you did on the hill. You were going to break the switch.
I broke the switch on that hill, and I still live that way today.
That's awesome.
You know,
that's a great testament to you know, what we leave behind a lot of times. There's people out there that say, you know, we're only operating at 20% capacity. You know, we aren't operating at 100%. It's when you start getting into that 40, 50, 60, you start seeing what you can do. And then that's like the gate that opens up to everything else. Because I think, like you said, once you accomplish one thing and you're able to do something that you didn't think you would be able to do, you're able to defeat that hill, then, man, the sky's the limit.
Yeah,
you know,
you use that that accomplishment, right? You use that to kind of leverage that for other aspects of your life, right?
Absolutely.
So it wasn't until later on in my life that I learned to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. Or I didn't realize that I enjoy the journey and the process more than the actual accomplishment
itself.
Right. So I'll get these accomplishments, and I'm like, I'm not really fulfilled. Like I don't.
You
I
are
don't,
for like a split second.
Yeah,
right.
it's very fleeting, you know. But what I do look back on is, man, I did this, I did that,
Right.
and all my stories that I'm telling is not, yeah, I achieved this. It's always, let me tell you what I did to achieve this.
What it took.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what it took.
And
to
that's
get here.
that's always so hard to see in the moment. And I texted Tony. You know, he's been a mentor for me for several years, and a good friend. And I mean, we train together practically every day and work out and stuff. And he was there along this whole journey of me preparing and studying for the captain's test and everything. And there were days where I would call him and just be like, man, I feel like I'm gonna break, like my family life, like I'm just sacrificing everything, and what if this doesn't work out? And you know, because in the moment, all you see is the struggle.
Yep.
All you see is the pain. All you see is the sacrifice. You don't see the result, right? You have hope and faith that will be there, but sometimes that's not enough to overcome those emotions of doubt and those emotions of anxiety and fear that kind of paralyze you, or even worse, that kind of drive you into like a downward spiral.
Yeah.
You know, and
I had all the cadets the first day I addressed them on their first day. I had them all write down their why. Why are you doing this?
that's awesome.
Right. So
That's awesome.
I said, you're going to write this down, and I don't want to see it. You don't have to share it with nobody, but you're going to take it and you're going to put it somewhere where you can reference it at all times. I said, because you're going to have that point where you're going to be struggling, and you're going through this academy and it's very difficult, and you're going to be wondering, why am I doing this? And that's going to be, you go back to that and you revisit that. Now that'll get you over those humps, right?
Yeah.
So we just had we had some cadets that they had their first, in their paramedic program, they had their first test that they took, and some of them didn't do so well. So we also had some in fire that didn't do so well. So I go and I address them, and I said, go back to that why. Why are you here? This one test that you took that you failed does not define your career. What you do afterwards will define your career.
Right.
You know, so so getting back to the whole, you know, my whole origin story. So once I did that, and I started having a little bit more success on the football field, and you know, I had doubters and stuff, and I just kind of kept working, and it worked the way I work, you know, and I started having more success, and you know, I had it like a leadership role, but at the time, my leadership style was more, you know, watch what I do, follow me.
I was gonna say, because I remember you in high school, and one thing, like I was the guy that would like lead everybody, like, yeah, yelling.
Yeah.
I'm still that guy, right? But I always remember you on that field, and I never remember seeing you as that vocal, like loud, showy kind of dude. You would he was the guy that would catch an 80-yard pass, like put the ball down and then just go off to the sideline. Like you were the guy that like they say in the pros, like act like you've been there before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that was my thing. And I think it comes because I had to work for everything I got. Like I wasn't that natural athlete. So it wasn't like, hey, like I've been pedestaled my whole life. I wasn't. I'm just a guy that's just going to outwork you. You know? So I would do things on the field, and then I would always look for those that, you know, that weren't inspired, they weren't going as hard, and I would use that as a way to try to get them to go harder, you know. We did have a vocal leader on our team, so I didn't really have to do that, which was Brandon Collier. He was our vocal leader, you know, very loud, very passionate, very, you know, in people's face and all that stuff. So he took care of that. For me, it was just like, look, I organize. I'm an organizer, right? Like I set up practices on days off. I'm calling like meetings in high school. I'm calling like team meetings. Everyone needs to be here.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to do this thing. We're gonna try to get this program the way it should be. You know, I remember I had them all commit to not drinking and not smoking weed.
Nice. Which in high school at that time, I mean, that was a big,
it was
thing.
They were like, you realize what we're giving up, you know? And I'm like,
shit, we would smoke weed before we went to practice.
Yeah, you know? So, and then, you know, we end up having some adversity. We end up losing to y'all that kind of put us on a downward spiral.
I wanted to ask you about that, because what people don't understand with this backstory is Moody at that time wasn't a very good team prior. right? And then this year they come in and they're just absolutely crushing it. And I think you guys were 5-0 or something at that point.
I think we were 3-0.
Three and 0. Okay, so they came in, but they had like everybody was like, these dudes are killing it. We were actually, because we always had hard schedules at the beginning of the year. We always competed against like Victoria Memorial or Victoria, whatever the East or whatever the hell it is. But we always competed against GP, those guys. So oftentimes we would have close games, but we would be like 1-2 going into the regular season. But the one thing I do remember is that after that game, it was like y'all fell off.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to ask, because we always heard, oh, guys quit after that.
They did.
And so that's what happened.
Yep, a lot of the guys. It wasn't after y'all. It was another close game that we ended up losing, and my whole team meeting, the commitments were gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
The guys started quitting. These are high school kids, so they
Yeah.
don't have it. They don't have that within them to commit like that yet.
But let me ask you this. You're the leader, and you have all your team just quit on you.
Yeah.
How did you keep that positive mentality? Because you still you still showed out every Friday night. I mean, you still hit good numbers. Like you were doing your thing.
It for me is like I had to pick up the slack, and then there was other younger kids that would come in and trying to build them up and their confidence up that they can play with us to kind of fill in the gaps. You know? Like we had the great Luis Flores.
Okay,
he was a freshman. He ended up stepping up on varsity football.
Yeah.
We had who else did we have? Modine, what's his name? There was a guy who's in the fire department. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name.
That left the fire department?
Yes,
Patrick Modine.
Patrick Modine.
Yeah.
We had Patrick Modine as a sophomore. He ended up stepping up. So we had those young guys that they were kind of there waiting, and then they had some opportunity. I'm like, look, this is your opportunity. We don't care what grade you in, how old you are, just seize the moment.
Right.
So they kind of stepped in and fulfilled some of those filled some of those gaps that we had.
That's awesome.
So, but the stuff I learned from that, moving forward into as I got into like college and stuff, like I was ate up with football.
Yeah.
So I don't get to this point without surrounding myself by good friends, right? We all have like friends from elementary school, and then you kind of change when you get to middle school, and then when you get to high school, so there's like these little blocks of people that I hung out with, and luckily everybody I hung out with they didn't drink and they didn't do drugs, right? And they were all like-minded guys, so we were always playing basketball and working out and doing all that stuff. So very similar minded. Now we did get into some mischief, but not enough stuff to like get us in trouble.
Right.
And I think a lot of luck has a lot to do with that as well.
Right.
But still today, like my two brothers, Chemo, he works for RTFC, and my buddy DC. He's a driver at Houston Fire Department.
Okay.
He's also a major in the military. So those dudes, man, they're like my brothers.
Yeah.
Like if we have problems, like if I go like a month without talking to them, it's like I need to call them.
Right.
It's been too long.
But you guys don't hang out on the regular.
No, because because of kids, and then DC's in Houston. But every time DC comes into town, we're linking up. Every time I go to Houston, we're trying to link up.
Yeah.
So stood up in both of those guys' weddings. I had a small. I just went to the courthouse and got married, but they would have been in my wedding if I would have had a big wedding. And then luckily our wives get along to as well, so they're like
because that could be
it helps.
Definitely.
So without those two, man, without Chemo, I wouldn't be in the fire department.
Well, we often say like, whenever you want to make a change, whenever you want to do something positive, whenever you want to do something successful, there's going to be times where you got to cut people off, right?
Sure.
Whether it's family, friends. I just made a post the other day on Facebook talking about people that want to change, but they're not willing to change the people or their surroundings, right? They're not willing to change their habits. If you continue to do the same thing, you're going to get the same results. If you continue to hang around the same people, you're going to get the same kind of results. You're not going to change your future by continuing to do the things of your past.
Yeah.
Right. To be progressive, you have to constantly reevaluate. You just like a fire ground, right? You got to constantly look at what's going on, reevaluate the situation, redistribute resources, and that's something that in our lives we have to consistently do, and that's something that I have done within this last year, especially because with me putting so much effort into the books, I don't have time for any negativity, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, I don't have time for anybody that is not helping me towards my mission.
Yeah, and look at just going off what you said. Like, look at the people you hang around, the conversations that you're having. If you're not having conversations about, self-improvement, doing better, finances, growth, all that stuff, you need to cut those people out of your life.
Yeah.
If every time they call you, it's about something negative and they want to gossip and
drama,
chat about something negative.
So easy to get into.
Yeah.
In any organization, I'm sure gossip runs the.
Well, because it's like eating fat, right? It's like it tastes good.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. You know, but having those other conversations is like eating your vegetables every day. It's like with no seasoning on it. It's like, man, we're talking about this, but yeah, you need to, if you want to grow and you want to self-actualize, you need to have these hard conversations, and you need to be setting goals, and not easy. You set some goals that are easy to get, like the low-hanging fruit type stuff, but you need to set goals that are that's going to challenge you. You need to find your weakness and be honest about those weaknesses, right? You need to find mentors that are going to be honest with you about, where you are, where you can improve. And for me, that's the hardest thing to do, because most of us don't like to. It's hard for you to give friend that negative, hey man, you need to, I see you kind of slipping. It's hard to do that because that's just not how we're wired, You know
what I've found is it's not hard with my best friends.
Correct.
It's not hard with people that I'm like, hey man, like, you're fucking up.
Yeah.
People that I've known for years, people that I consider, like, that's why I love my buddy Pete. He was my best man at my wedding, and he'll straight up call me and be like, hey dude, just to let you know, like, this ain't right. You ain't doing this right, and vice versa. And we've always held each other to that standard. But, and I have this conversation with my wife a lot, because I say, man, it's just like, it's just like in the Bible, it talks about telling people what's right, what's wrong. It talks about giving people the truth. If you see somebody headed towards their demise, you want to warn them. What is more loving, to warn them or to just nonchalantly act like it's not a big deal? And that's a discussion that I have with her, because there's often times where we see our friends and they're just doing this. Your friends call you when they fuck up or when they have something messed up in their lives, and they're like, they want reaffirmation that they were right.
Correct.
Right. That the decision they made, it wasn't their fault while this relationship didn't work, or why they financially are in this situation, or why they didn't get into this program. They don't want you to confront them and tell them, like, no, this didn't work because you're doing the same shit you've done in every other relationship.
For sure.
This didn't work because you're taking the same approach with this job that you did the last couple that you weren't successful at. Like, and that is not easy. I brought up somebody, we have a behind the scenes worker that listens to all our podcasts, and I'm very appreciative of them, and they are super, to the point where they're taking notes on our stuff, and they're always giving me feedback. And sometimes the feedback is like, oh shit, like, I didn't realize I was doing that. And it's almost like, you're right, you get that automatic, like, defense mode.
For
like,
sure.
Whatever, it's my podcast, I'll do what the fuck I want, like, it's one of those things.
But it says a lot that you can recognize, like, you feel yourself saying, like, whoa, like, look in the mirror, like, is there truth to what they're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the difference is.
Well, and I know it's coming from a good place, and that goes to surrounding yourself with people that are for you, because it's real easy, especially in where I'm at in the jiu-jitsu community. It's real easy to surround myself, and I've seen it before, with a bunch of yes men, with a bunch of guys that are just going to be hanging on your cloak, and anything you do is right, and everything
that's
you do,
the worst thing you can do,
and that's absolute worst.
Yeah. So, just going off of that, like, it's like I said, it's like eating your vegetables. Like, I don't like to mess up. I tell you that. I don't like to be told that I messed up, so that's why I try so hard not to mess
Nobody
up.
does, you know.
You know, and I've learned it's a skill you have to hone and develop to be able to take that criticism, right, and not to have that, because the first thing you're gonna do is try to defend yourself, right? No self-respecting man likes to be told what to do, right? But we all need to be, for our growth and prosperity, we all need to be told that, you know, when we're doing wrong.
Right.
Is there something? Is there something to like being your? And I found this in my life, like being your own worst critic.
Yes.
Like where, man, I'm constantly like, God, I could have done that better. Like, you know, just we do after actions in the fire department a lot, and like every after action, I'm like, okay, what? Like the first thing that I go, like the priority is like, what role did I play?
Yes.
Like what communication is in every after action that we could be better at, right? So it's like, how was my communications? Like that's the first thing that I'm asking myself. Yeah. And being your own worst critic, like, man, I didn't do what I needed to do. You know,
you know, and I take that from my early years of my life, like with my football journey. Like, if I dropped a pass, like I tell my son this all the time. Like, if he dropped a pass, I'm like, why did you drop it? What happened? What was wrong? Like, I remember literally sitting right now, I'm cataloging balls that I dropped. Like these footballs that I dropped in these critical moments in practice. Yeah. In practice, I know why. And if you're going to be a professional in the fire service or any other organization, if you're going to be professional, you need to find out why you made the mistake. You need to go back to the drawing board and you need to set up a system to where that won't happen again. Yeah. Right. And if you're not doing that, and if you're just, I just won't do it again, it's like, okay, you need to get down to the root cause of why you made that mistake. Right. And if you get down to that and you can solve that, then that limits your chance of making those mistakes again. Yeah. You know, so, but some of us are wired that way. Others aren't, you know. You find that in people that play sports, right? They're used to getting that criticism, and they're used to trying to refine and get better and being part of a team and trying to, you know, find out where they fit in that team and playing their role and doing all that stuff. So it's a challenge for those that get into the fire service that haven't played sports or weren't involved in any team activities or clubs or whatever, where they're held accountable and responsible and getting critiqued and criticized, and things matter and their production matters, and they get in the fire service and they're like, I'm just here. And it's like, no, you're not. No. Yeah. It's beyond that. Right. You're a professional. You're going to be held accountable. Every action that you do is going to have underlining, and there's going to be some kind of aspect at the end of it that's going to impact somebody else. Every action that you do. Yeah. You know, so
it's not all about you. Yeah. That's the thing about a team, right? Yeah. And that's in the fire service with small teams. That's what we are. We're groups. We're small groups trying to accomplish a common goal. Yep. That's what a team does. And it's like, that's why they're so successful for those that worked it with teams before. I would even go back to the problem I see with the fire service is that we all are competitive. We're competing as units, as these micro teams, sub teams. We're competing against each other, against the same opponent, which is the fire or the rescue or this EMS call. And it's like, guys, we're playing the same opponent. Yeah. Let's work together. It's not my team is better than yours. It's like, our team is better than you, fire. Right. And we're going to put you out.
Have you ever seen officers that don't know, and this is coming from my jiu-jitsu side of things, but have you ever seen cops try to take down somebody? I'm talking 2 to 4 cops going after one person, trying to take him down, and just not being able to, and then being thrown all over the place, right? I mean, we've all seen it.
They're working against each other.
Exactly.
Like one's holding them up, the other one's trying to pull them down.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know, I used to, and I probably shouldn't say this, but we'll be on a scene and there's somebody, we need law enforcement there, and they're trying to take them down, and they're like wrestling with this guy. Oh, yeah. And I'm like there as a paramedic, and I just reach down and grab his pant leg, and I just rip his leg all the way up as high as I can. And he just goes down. I'm like, guys.
Yeah,
Did
that's
none of
not-
y'all play
no,
football?
no,
Like he ain't
exactly.
going nowhere without his legs.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
almost like
yeah.
that concept of being detached. Like you're detached, you're looking at the whole thing, and you can easily see like this one move.
I'm like, let me
Yeah.
just grab this,
Yeah.
and there down he goes. You
And
know,
and it's funny because I mean we've been in that situation and Randy's like, Roger, help them out, and I'm
Yeah.
and it's literally just applying pressure to certain places. But like you said,
Yeah.
they're working against each other.
Yes.
You know, one person's pulling left, the other person's pulling right. Well, that ain't gonna do nothing.
We
you know?
do that a lot on the fire ground. I see it a lot, and it's the analogy of, or just a situation of, we got a house fire. There's a unit that's attacked. What is the attack unit gonna need? Supply. Why is the next unit trying to take another hand line in?
Well,
Another
because
attack, yeah.
because number one, like you said, we're selfish.
Yep.
Number two, our pride. We often everybody likes to think they're the best, and this is where it's difficult because you got to navigate the ego. You have to have the ego of walking in knowing you can do the job.
Yeah.
You feel like you can do the job better than anybody else, but you also have to be able to step back. And that has been a struggle for me, especially with rookies, because I see them with the patient and they don't ask the questions that I'm thinking they should ask when I think they should ask them. So sometimes I jump in, and that's the great thing about my crews. They'll pull me back and be like, let them do their thing. You know, let them do their thing.
So I used to do the same thing, and you know how I got over that is I give them an extra 10 to 15 seconds, and I count like if because we all have these internal clocks. We've been in, I've been 18, 17, 20,
22,
22.
Yeah.
Right. We have these internal clocks of when things are supposed to happen. And if if it doesn't happen at that time that I know I would have did it, then I'm already like, okay, why isn't this done? So I always give like 10 to 15 extra seconds.
Okay.
And more than likely, it'll happen during that time. And then once they reach that, then that's my leeway that I gave them to get it done.
Right.
So I'm not like automatically just stepping all over them.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll kind of like, hey, nudge them like, hey, consider this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like we get on scene, and instead of working as a unit at times, and we all know, I think it's gotten a lot better. I think that there were certain stations on certain shifts with certain mentalities where, you know, call it cowboy, call it freelancing, call it whatever you want. But these guys got on scene and it was like they thought they were God's gift to fire and nobody else could do anything. Mm-hmm. And instead of helping to mitigate the situation, they oftentimes made the situation worse because they're doing their own thing. And in reality, it's like you said, you know, we work together, and I have to have enough. I have to, along with ego comes being humble, and I have to be humble enough to know that if this person is assigned doing that job, I have to have faith they're going to get the job done, and I have to at least give them the chance to get the job done. Now we all know that there's times where crews aren't as successful or they're struggling. Then you step in, but you can't automatically jump in.
And there's a way to do that too, right? There's a grace about doing that, right? Like if they're not doing it, you don't just bulldog your way in. You know, there's some kind of, you got to have a little bit of grace as you're doing that. And if you do that, then it's better received. And then you still have that openness for them to come back, and you can have that conversation with them like, hey, let me tell you why I did this.
Right.
You know,
right.
You guys it's communication, right? It's like how we communicate with our family, with our wives. Like I'm trying to get better at that right now. That's one thing.
All of us, brother.
It's not you. It's
yes.
Hey, why don't we try this next time? And this is why, you know.
And the hard part for me with that is when neither of you think you're wrong, taking a step back and acknowledging where you were wrong first, because both of y'all might be wrong in some aspects, but oftentimes I found that if I step back and I say, look, I'm sorry, you're right, I shouldn't have done this, that, and the other, then it softens the mood, the conversation, and it allows them to now step in and be like, you know what, I apologize too. Yeah. But if we're constantly pointing fingers, then like we said, it's human nature to go in defense mode. For
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So
to get back on going back to my origin story is one more thing I want to kind of add on there. Like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people protecting me from the environment that I was in. Yeah. Right. I was somehow, some way, like seen as the one that can quote unquote make it out.
Right.
Right. So there was times that and my brother was the main one, right? I'll be in a certain environment that he was in, right? Because he chose a different path than me, and while I'm there, kind of hanging around, you know, his friends will come. They were my friends too, but they'll show up and they're doing whatever they're doing, right? And they would try to offer me stuff, and he's like, he'll protect me from it. Don't offer my brother that.
Yeah.
Like no. And they would know, like they learn like off limits, you know, and that came from a lot of that came from my brother, you know.
Yeah. Because if he hadn't done that, who knows?
Yeah. I had already made that internal decision not to partake in that stuff. I mean, I tried it a couple times, right? But I made that internal decision after that second time that this was not my path.
Right.
Like, I'm not doing this, you know. And along the way, there was opportunities for me to mess up along the way, but somehow I'll end up being able to recover, whether it's luck, timing, people kind of looking out for me that I didn't even know.
Right.
I'm sure there was a lot of that, you know, which allowed me to it allowed me like to get in the fire department. And then once I got in the fire department, everything kind of just leveled off,
Yes.
you know. Separated myself. Like I didn't go back to my neighborhood for a long time. You know, people wouldn't, oh, you still live here? Oh, I thought you moved. You know, it's like, no, you don't see me. That's a good thing.
Right.
You know, so,
Right.
And then getting in the fire service, like at the time, you know, I just very introverted at the time when I got in, you know. I had my voice, but I didn't know where I fit in the fire service. I almost felt like, you know, there was this imposter syndrome, like I don't belong here, and I'm like, I'm lucky to be here. I'm just gonna sit down and try to do a good job, and don't look at me, like I'm just here trying to do a good job, you know. And I guess Captain Amaya, he was like my first captain I was at the station with for like I think like 2 years, and just going off of him, like I guess he saw something in me I didn't see it in myself, you know. I'm like, this is just how I operate. Like this is above the standard. Like this is just me, you know.
Right.
And so kind of getting that confidence there, and then just kind of moving forward throughout my career and not being afraid to take chances, right? Like I never saw myself, I took a captain's test with 6 years in, and I almost made, I think that's a test that you made captain on. Tony probably made captain on that.
2010 was the test that I took.
Yeah. I think Tony made on that one. And I got my grade back. I got like a 92 on it. I'm like, man, I'm about to make. But then there was guys that made 97s.
Oh, that was the one after me. That was the one we were
That was Randy.
That was the one we were talking about the other day,
That was-
because there was because we were talking about, man, this mic sounding weird again. I don't know. Am I coming up on there?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. That was the test right after mine, because we've been talking about grades with the captain's test they just had, and it was that there was a test one year where someone made, it was Gabe Castro made number one with 100. He made 100. He didn't miss a single one.
Yeah.
And so, because we're talking about difficulty levels, like obviously this last test was a higher difficulty level, the scores show.
Yeah.
So yeah, like even because on mine a 92 would have been like number 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah.
You know? So that was probably 2011, 2012 or something.
Yeah.
They had some really high scores, but on ours they weren't as high.
Yeah.
But that moment for you was like a affirmation that you could do it.
Yeah. Well, I can score high enough to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
Right. So
Good point.
I saw that and I'm like, because I remember looking back before I started studying, I looked back at like Tony's test and the other tests. I'm like, dude, if I make like a 90, I'm in.
Yeah.
Right. And because
It's funny how we all think like the same shit that you got. I mean, that's how I was going into this test,
Different tests, you do the
looking
same
through
thing.
different tests and all that. You know?
I always study for 100, but I'm like, if I make a 90, if I get that grade and it's a 90, I'm in.
You're good.
Right. So she gave me that Scantron. I was like, I remember in my mind, I'm like, dude, I'm about to be a captain. And then I started thinking,
am I ready for this?
There was that, am I ready for this? And I knew I was going to get ready. Like
Right.
I knew I was going to do a good job because I was going to just develop myself every day.
Right.
Every shift, I was going to put the work in. I knew I was going to have some failures along the way, but I'll learn from those failures, you know. And I never had that fear of, I'm a young guy. I never had that. How am I going to lead these men? I'm like, you lead people all the same way. You love them, you respect them, right? Without those two things, you ain't leading nobody.
No.
Without respect and love, you're not leading nobody. You teach them, you coach them, you support them, you advocate for them. You get all the things, the cliche things that people say, like those things are real things.
Yes.
Right? You empower them, right? You don't be afraid to discipline them, right? And you discipline them with love. It's like, this is tough love. So I preach to the cadets, like, look, if you come in my office and I got to write you up, just know it's all out of love to make you better.
Right. And that's how you know we're that's really what I think separates the difference between holding the title and actually being good at the position, right? Is because in our sports careers, coming up in that definitely help. But I think there's, an unfortunate thing that I've seen is where people make that they get that badge and they throw around the title and the position, and you can tell it's because they've never been in, number one, they've probably never been in charge of anybody, or number two, they've never been a part of a team, like you said. And so when they get in those situations, they're throwing their weight around instead of, Tony told me something that before I even started taking this test, and he goes, he says, realize, like, when you get that position, like, you become more of a servant, right? You become more of it's not about you. It's about your crew. How are they doing? Are they okay? Mentally, are they going through some struggles? What do they need? And from what I've seen, that's one thing Randy, my captain's good about is, what do you guys need? What if we need equipment, if we need even vacation, like even our policy, like he puts it in for us. He doesn't even want us to send it. He's like, just tell me what you write it on the calendar. I'll put it in for you. He goes above and beyond in those ways to make sure that it lightens the load on us a little bit and that we're taken care of. But that, I think, is a big struggle, and that's something that I wish we had a little bit more of, and maybe at some point we'll get there, but it's guiding those guys that are taking those captain's positions. We have a captain's orientation, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but that's the number one thing that I hear is that there's not a lot of departments that really prepare people for that management role.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I mean, I love our department, but I feel that that's where we're lacking. We take a test, you get a gold badge, go run the station.
It is, and it completely is, and the new leadership in our department has recognized that.
Absolutely.
And we're working on. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're working on trying to bridge that gap. Like you can see with the new study material, you see like leadership books in there, right? Like we never used to have that.
Right.
Is that going to create and solve the problem? No, but it's just a step in the right direction. You have a lot of these guys come in and they step into these leadership roles and they don't know who they are. They don't even know who they are.
Right.
And they're trying to be this person as I'm going to be a captain, and I'm going to be this person. I like how this person is a captain. I'm going to be him as a captain. It's like, no, you need to be you as a captain. And once you figure out who you are, and you can't do that without knowing who you are. Right? Knowing what your faults are, knowing how you communicate, knowing how you lead, knowing what makes you, how you handle a bad day and you show up to the fire station. Like, if you haven't considered those things, you're not going to be a good officer, and you're going to have plenty of holes. If you start disrespecting people and not respecting your guys that are working for you, and challenging them, because everybody wants to be challenged, right? They may not come off that way, but join the fire department for a challenge.
Yeah.
Not
because it's easy.
Yeah, and if you're not challenging them and you're not helping them be more comfortable in what they do, then you're going to have problems, And if they don't respect you as a person, not as a captain or an officer, if they don't respect you as a person, you're not going to get anything out of them. Right. You will. You can force them and micromanage them to do things, but they're not going to do things willingly. Right. It's going to be a dog fight just to get basic stuff done.
Yeah. A lot of what you're talking about is like professional standards and being able to develop our firefighters, our employees, to be able to be in these roles. And like we've talked about it before, like leadership is not synonymous with rank at every time. You could be a leader and be any rank. And one of the things with the professional development that you were a part of was these leadership books. We had leadership books only for certain ranks. Now we've implemented leadership books at like different ranks, and these books, we even evaluated them. Said this would be good for this rank. This would be good. So at every level, it has a book that has to do with leadership that could apply at that level, so that they could help them the most.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really going to help.
Yep.
With these future ranks.
Yeah,
and
for
that
sure.
They're going to have something that they could go to.
Yeah.
That's at the level that they're at. That's going to apply to their job.
And just them knowing that is a skill that they need to develop, just like
for even a firefighter too,
pulling the line.
Yeah.
Right. Like as you get up in rank, like there's, as an assistant chief, there's public speaking that you got to get better at. Like every single rank has these skills that you need to start honing, and you don't start honing them whenever you get the rank. Like you should already. It's
almost too late at that point. But like, you're, and you take those uncomfortable situations, like public speaking, for instance, like very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Man, if you know that that's something that's like, that's uncomfortable for me. It's like, I'm going to do every elementary school presentation. Yes. Like, hey, Captain, I'll do it. Yep. Every opportunity that I get, people come to the station, I'll do the station tours so that I can get better at it. For us. But that a lot of it was like news interviews.
Yeah.
We need to be good. You are an advocate of our organization. Mm-hmm. You are the face, sometimes the voice. Like, if you go up there sound like you don't know what you're talking about.
You don't want to be the whole Ricky Bobby, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, like, it goes a long way, and we recognize that. And, we're putting some courses together to be better at that. We've gone to courses to be better at that. It's a challenge, you know, and that, you're about to be a captain. You're gonna be put in front of that camera. And it's like, what did you guys do?
Like, well, that's one thing. Unfortunately, I feel like with the fighting, my public speaking. I don't know. I've always been pretty decent. Even in high school, when they interviewed me, I remember they did a 9/11 tribute when I was a rookie. Well, I say I was a rookie. I was, but I had like 3 years in maybe, and I was at ones. And it was the first year I was there for 9/11, and they came and they put me on the spot. They were like, hey, you're gonna do it, and they're all there watching with big old smiles. And I like killed the interview, and they're just like, okay, whatever.
Because a lot of people struggle with that. That's a struggle
absolutely.
for a lot of people. They freeze,
and they start they drift to the back. Right. I had this conversation with the cadets. It all goes, all this stuff. I'm having these conversations with these cadets. They're just starting their journey. It applies. I tell them everything I'm telling you applies until the end of your career. Yeah. This is not just. I'm not giving you these nuggets for a year and then you're done with it.
This is not just because you're a cadet.
Yeah.
This is like, remember this throughout your career.
This is applicable throughout your career, Yeah. So they people drift to the back, and then they don't want to, they're not comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That was the whole speech yesterday. It's like, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Who's scared of heights? Guys raise their hands. I said, start climbing that ladder.
Yep.
That's it. That's the only way you're going to get over
exposure.
Who put the mask on and kind of freaked out? Someone raised their hands. I said, some of y'all that didn't raise your hands, when we start working under that mask and putting it under load,
you're gonna feel it.
You're gonna have a problem. And I said, I'm gonna come in. Y'all gonna raise more hands. I said, and that's okay.
Yes.
What's not okay is if you identify that and you do nothing about it.
Exactly.
That is not okay.
Exactly. And that's the hard part about being a leader and really about self-actualization is like looking yourself in the mirror, acknowledging your deficiencies and not ignoring them. Mm-hmm. And there's so many times I love how the fire department and jiu-jitsu relates, and Tony can now understand it because, man, if you're in a situation where you're not good at a certain technique or a certain position and you get into that match or that fight and you're in that position, that's not the place where you want to try and figure it out, right? And that's not... People don't. What do you say, Tony? People don't rise to their level of proficiency. They rise to their last level of training,
or what they're familiar with.
And that's the thing is we all have to acknowledge our weaknesses and unfortunately, we talk about leadership on this podcast a lot, but a lot of this just is life lessons. Yeah, there's so many people I see in their lives that are my friends. And of course, I'm the asshole because I'm very blunt and forward with everything. And everybody,
fire service does that to us.
Yeah, but the thing is, everybody thinks like I'm trying to call people out on their shit, and they say, "Oh, don't judge Ashley. I love her to death, but she's like, oh, teach their own. I don't judge anybody." I'm like, "No, you have to judge." Yeah. I said because when I was that fat, out of shape guy that was drinking beer and just eating Bob's and Whataburger, and like, I wish somebody would have came to me and like slap me around a little bit and say, hey, look,
Yeah.
if you continue this is where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
But people don't like to hear the truth. They confuse hearing the truth with you hating on them, and that's not what it is. And I tell the rookies all the time, I say, man, if we've all heard it, right? If you go to a fire station, nobody's talking to you. That's when there's concern.
Be worried.
If guys are fucking with you, it's because they like you. And I tell all the guys that all the time. I say, don't get your feelings hurt. You know, now unfortunately, there are people out there that just like to mess with people and not teach them.
Yeah.
But if somebody's messing with you a little bit, hazing you, razzing you, and then they're showing you how to correct, then they care. Because I'm not going to waste my time. It's like my kids. I don't enjoy bitching them out. I don't enjoy getting on them, but I'm doing this to correct them because I care.
Yeah.
I care about their future. I care about their progress. I care about how they turn out.
That's that love and leadership, right? That's that love and leadership, which is main two is love and respect. You know, all this stuff even applies beyond the fire service, right? You can apply all this stuff to other organizations, right? Like I got businesses that I run, you know, and I use the same principles in my businesses, right? And we've been successful with them, you know. Luckily, I have family members that work with me, and we communicate. You know, we've had these relationships that have been established, but now as we're growing, we're starting to pull more people in. And if they don't fit in the family, right? And if they don't communicate well, and if they don't, you know, play their role and, you know, try to take care of the business and be good stewards of the business, I let them go.
Yeah, you have to.
You know, so
there's something that says in the book. It says it takes, oh man, I just went blank. It's something like it takes 10 seconds to know somebody doesn't belong, but it takes 10 years to let them go. Because a lot of times we can acknowledge right off the bat, this is not a good fit. But as managers, people tend to let that slide, ignore it. And because it is hard to confront people.
Yeah.
But I think it's easier to confront people when they know your intentions are good.
For sure.
And they're pure. And that goes back to them having respect for you.
Yep. And how you talk to them and all that stuff. And there's some grace in doing it, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's another skill that you have to learn, right? And if you always, you know, backpedaling and when it comes time for confrontation and you don't want to deal with it, then you don't do nothing but get worse at it.
Yes.
You know. It's never comfortable to be in confrontation with somebody. It's never comfortable to have to write somebody up or bring them in and counsel them and all that stuff. But if you if you know who you are and you know why you're doing it and you're grounded in why you're doing it, there's a way to do it to where they walk out of there and they feel like, you know what, I just got my ass chewed, but I'm okay with it. I'm going to get better.
It's not going to happen again.
It's not going to happen again.
Figure out how to make sure this never happens.
Well,
this guy he didn't just chew my ass, and I say ass chewing. He didn't just counsel me, and then now all of a sudden this dude hates me.
Right.
This person hates me. It's like, look, I'm counseling you because you know you messed up. This is just a process. I'm just a figure, right? I want you to do good. What can I do to make sure that you don't do that again? You know what? Usually it's like, you know what? You don't have to do nothing.
It's on me. It's on me. Yeah.
You know,
it goes into like one of the things that you should really try not to do is, well, never try to assume and then don't take things personal. Right.
Yeah.
The hardest thing.
Yeah.
Don't take things personal. Like he's trying to make me better.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to show him how I'm going to be better.
Yeah.
And
that's a hard. But
it goes back to like what you said, man. It's surrounding yourself with people. From the gym, I have one of the sweethearts. You know, she's our gym mom, we call her. She manages our front desk. She's one of my competitors. She's one. You know, her kids go to the. You know, they're part of our competition team and they're hardcore members of the gym. But man, there'll be days where she comes and she tells me like, "Hey, maybe you should think about this or think about." It's really easy for me to say, "Hey, be quiet. You just don't know what you're talking about or whatever." But they respect me and I respect them. And when they come to me with those concerns or questions, I respond to it in a positive way. I don't get defensive because I know it's coming from them.
The intent is like the best place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, brother, man, we like I said, man, this was a a long time coming.
Yeah.
I do want to get into your business a little bit. I know that you've got multiple businesses. You said
Yeah.
or right now. I know you're forming. We talk about Protect Seamless Gutters all the time on here. You guys are one of the sponsors for me. I always put it out there. You know, how have you been able to manage both? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that, especially with your schedule, you know, it can get difficult to run a successful business, and especially with the position you're in now.
Yeah. So the main thing for me is I set up, it starts with the structure of my business, right? I set my business up to be able to, this was my whole aspect when I was setting it up, or whole mindset. If I can't take a vacation and make money, right, and my business is still functioning, then it's not set up right.
Right.
So from that point, I kind of just kept building it to where I can be not hands off, but I don't have to be there every day.
Right.
Right. So how do you do that? First is build a good team. Right. And we talked about that, right? Making sure fire service is a little bit different because you can't pick your people. Right. But in in business, in the private sector, you can pick your people. So build a big team, a good team, and hold them accountable, give them all the information, and I let them go out and do their thing. I don't hold them back. Right. So teaching, coaching, problem solving, right? We didn't even talk about the aspect of leadership and problem solving.
Right.
What is leadership? You problem solving.
Right.
All right. They call me. Hey, I got a problem with this. Okay. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? No. Okay. Try this. And empowering them to do it.
Right.
Well, I need you to, you don't need my approval to do none of that.
I was going to
stuff.
say, because sometimes you
it.
have to give them, you have to empower them in that way to let them know, hey, you're capable, man.
Yep.
Do it.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. And then also investing in my business. Like I don't, me and my business partners, we don't take none of the money out of it. It goes all back into the business to be able to grow it to where I don't have to be there.
Yes.
And I don't rely on none of the money from my business. Like I don't need to be collecting checks to pay my bills and all that stuff. So if I go and I file my taxes and it shows that I made zero money, but I'm gaining assets, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, and that's basically where we are in our businesses, you know? So, managing time, like if I'm putting time into my business, like let's say I'm doing 2 hours today on my business, then those are 2 hours of hardcore focused time. So where somebody would spend 4 hours doing it, I can get it done in 2 hours or an hour, you know? I read this book by Simon Sinek. I don't know if y'all read it, The 4 Hour Work Week.
I have not.
Changed my mind, dude, on everything, like about efficiency and doing all this stuff. 4 Hour Work Week is a little bit of a, he probably can do it, but
that seems a little hard to knock out.
It's just it looks nice. It's a nice title,
right?
4 Hour Work Week. But the whole premise behind the book is being efficient in what you're doing, right? Like reading your emails and coming up with systems to where these things are automated, right? A lot of my stuff is investing money in my business. A lot of things are automated, right? They're not, I don't need to be there typing.
Right.
I need to be able to communicate across every aspect of my business from taking a call in to a bid, to communicating to the installers, to collecting, to all that stuff that would take hours. If you can do it to where it's automated, I can get more work done.
You're done. Yeah, you're good.
Right? Or I can do the same amount of work and have more free time. Now I could be with my family, you know? So, I enjoy business. That's my sport. Like that, to me, that's a grown man sport, you know, and I get phone calls about a problem. It don't bother me. I'm like, you know what kind of problems I deal with in the fire department? We deal with life and death.
Yes. They don't get bigger than that.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. These things, a customer is like, I can't believe you're so calm and you handled it well. And I appreciate it. I'm like, this was nothing. Your gutter was leaking. That's not a problem.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
We'll be over there ready because they're ready. They're used to dealing with other contractors that, you know,
make things hard.
They're not used to taking that criticism and they automatically get defensive and that's not our problem. We did everything perfect. Yeah. I'm like, okay, yes, ma'am. Okay, we're on our way.
Right.
Well, I'm like, you don't have to say nothing else. We're on our way. We'll handle it.
Take care of it.
How much do I owe you? Nothing.
Yeah.
Just tell everybody what a good job we do. That's all we ask.
That goes a long way.
You know,
that goes
so
a long way.
I got my business degree and got my master's in business. So I'm able to apply a lot of that knowledge and stuff to this. So it's fun for me. It completely is fun for me. And I take a lot of these lessons and stuff and theories that I know, and I apply them to the fire service. Right, like we have a recruiting problem right now in the fire service, right? So I'm like, well, we need to market more. Yeah. It's marketing, right?
Straight from business, right?
Yeah, straight from business. Like if we're not,
in the end, the fire department is a business.
Yeah, right? It is.
I mean, we're a public service, but we're also it's a business.
Everything is a business. Everything we do is a business, you know. And if you look at it in that aspect, the only difference between the public sector and the private sector is profits. All right, public sector balanced budgets. Public sector is balanced budgets. Private sector is profits. They want to make money. Public sector, you want to spend all the money that you got allocated and budgeted. Private sector is you want to make more money than you budgeted.
Yes,
that's all it is.
Makes sense.
But the same principles and theories apply to the public sector. When you got a problem, you're like, okay, I got a problem with this. What would a business do? They would do this and this. Okay, then why don't we do that?
Right. It's interesting that you take that, because I think a lot of people don't have that approach, and they don't realize how much, whether you're talking about leadership, whether you're talking about running a business, like it all correlates. Mm-hmm. Even talking about running a business and dealing with your family, like how are you prioritizing time? Mm-hmm. How are you dealing with your subordinates, right? Your kids, your wife, mm-hmm. like are you able to communicate with them? Are you setting that time? You talk about being efficient. As busy as you are, if you're there on your phone when you got that hour with your wife or your kids and you're just messing around, like, are you really being efficient with that time that you set aside for them?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's so important that, and age comes wisdom, and sometimes, not all the time, yeah. But, it's definitely evident in the way you've progressed. And it's definitely evident in the things that I'm hearing that are coming out of training, and seeing some of the changes. I'm super excited, like you said, about the chief we have now, and
he's good.
The moves he's making. And it's, some people don't like change. I think those people that don't like change are okay with kind of not progressing.
Yeah.
When you are always looking to progress, you don't mind trying to change things up and trying new things to see how we can be better.
Yeah, because sometimes they may not work.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So I just got this email. It was an email from our payroll girl. I won't say her name on here, but we were talking about. No, I changed up how we communicate our limited duty stuff. And Tony gets those emails, right? And I learned the way we did it. And I'm like, okay, I can make this better. Like it still takes up too much of my time, but this was one aspect. I'm like, this is low hanging fruit. I can fix this.
Right. Knock it out.
So
quick.
I changed it, and she is a end user of it. And her and another girl were like, why are you changing this? Like, we want it this way. So I've been doing it for like 3 months now. Right. I went to that concert last night. There was a concert,
Yin Yang Twins.
Ashanti Yin Yang Twins, right? Typical rap concert. If you didn't go, you didn't miss much. But so I'm in line and I see email from her. She's like, at first when you created this limited duty group, I was like, I didn't want it. I didn't want to do it. She said, but I feel like I know what's going on. For the first time,
no one's getting missed.
Yes.
No one's getting under the
said,
radar.
I feel like I know exactly what's going on now. I said, well, I know it's changed, and I said, even now, if something on your job changes and you need me to change something over here, let me know. I'll tweak it.
But that's you being open as well to change and getting that response from other people, and not having that iron fist of, no, this is the way it's going to be. Yeah. This is, I know best. And,
situational leadership, right? So whenever she said, I don't like this, I did iron fist it. I did say, I don't care. This is how we're doing it.
We're going to try this.
We're going to try this. And I'll say, I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
But if it works, cool. So this is that, feedback that I've been waiting on is like, this is working, you know. So
Lets you know you're going in the right direction.
yeah,
right?
for sure, you know. And one more thing, we talked about business. Everything is a business, and you brought up that family is a business, and you're absolutely correct. Family to me is my number one business.
Yeah.
Right. And we, you know, being married to a professional woman is very difficult, right? Because there's those roles and where we work, and we're both professionals, and we're like high ranking in our organizations, and we come home and now we need to be high ranking at home, and then we're kind of like butting heads and trying to figure out, you know, where our problems lie and all that stuff. And then you got kids, you throw kids in the mix, and their sports and their grades, and
They're trying to put you against each other all the time.
Yeah,
too.
you know. So for me, like, I try to take those same principles and practices from the fire service and from my businesses and apply them to my house, to my home, and to my family. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. But for me, that's the most important aspect of my life, is trying to make sure that I keep my family intact, that, you know, that I'm able to advance the future leaders of my home, which are my children, my boys, you know. I got a 13-year-old and a 4-year-old. The 13-year-old right now thinks he knows what he's gonna do and what we're doing. He don't know why we're doing it, because, you know, he has a plan, and what we're doing doesn't make sense for his plan and all that stuff. And then again, situational leadership. I don't care, son. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Put my foot down. When it's time to communicate and I let you have input on what you're doing, I'm just basically holding him accountable, because he got a grade that we didn't like, right? So now I'm like holding him accountable to what we negotiated, you know, with his free time and all that stuff. And he don't like it. And I said, look, take your medicine, bro. Like,
Yeah.
This is not up for negotiation. What I say goes on this aspect, because I'm looking for your future. I'm trying to build you into being a good man. You don't even know what a man looks like yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's okay. And it's always love. Like, I grew up in my household, like, my dad, we didn't tell each other we loved. He didn't tell me he loved me until he got sick. So maybe about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. I'm 39, 29
That's just
years
that old
old.
school. That's that old school thing.
Yeah. So I kind of flipped it on his head, and I tell my boys I love them all the time. I'll give them kisses, kiss on the lips. Like, it's like an Italian family in my house.
Yeah.
You know, but I want them to know that there's that love there in our house. They don't have to go nowhere else to find love. And if they mess up and something happens, I want to be the first one to know.
Right.
Hey, Dad, I did something critically wrong. I need to be the first one to know.
Yeah.
I don't want them running around trying to. I don't want them afraid to communicate.
Being able to have your kids talk to you is like so important.
Yep.
They come to you. Let them feel that they can come to you with anything.
With anything. Okay. Hey, Dad, I just killed somebody.
I screwed up.
Where's the body? Let's go bury it.
Yeah. Come to me. Come to me first.
Yeah.
You know. So that's what I wanted to kind of, you know, leave with, is like, family to me is the most vital aspect of everything we do. Because without them, like, where would we be?
Yeah, absolutely,
you know?
man.
And our family is not just your blood family. Like, it goes beyond that. You know, it goes to your brothers and sisters in the fire service. We have a brotherhood, right? But not, the brotherhood is strong, but we have our close brothers that we can say, hey, I just killed somebody, and that dude's gonna be like, all right, bro, let's figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and if you don't have that, you don't have people able to, like you said, if you don't have people able to tell you these things, then they're just more like acquaintances, friends. They're not like true brothers. You know.
Yeah.
So,
well, man, I appreciate you stopping by. I know you got a busy schedule. And like I said, this has been a long time coming, but I think we, you know, one thing about this podcast and the reason I wanted to do it is because I feel that there's a lot of people out there that can learn from some of the mistakes and failures, right? Because a failure isn't a failure unless you don't learn from it.
Yeah.
Right. You continue to progress, you continue to grow. And I think with your testimony, you know, as far as how you were brought up, what you went through, how you were able to overcome your situation. I think there's a lot of people out there that use their situation as an excuse, and oftentimes that handicaps them throughout their whole life. But to anybody out there listening, like, I know we preach leadership and we talk about teamwork and all that stuff, but I really hope that people take these lessons that we're saying and don't just apply them to a job or a profession. They apply them to their family. They apply them to themselves, because, like I said, self-actualization is the hardest thing. And the hardest thing for me is to see somebody that's not reaching their potential because they refuse to acknowledge their mistakes, their shortcomings, their downfalls. And, hopefully this can give some people some encouragement that they can overcome those things. So
how much time we got? I got
whatever you want, brother. You're
okay. I got so on self-actualization, right? So we all, not all of us, but as paramedics and firefighters, we learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So I always feel like you kind of move up and down that ladder depending on what's going on in your life and how things are working, setbacks and stuff, right? So right now I kind of feel like I'm at that self-actualized aspect of my life, and I feel like, I have a lot of these stories and these downfalls and these failures that people can learn from.
Yes.
Right. Where I came from, where I'm at. This is just where I'm at right now. I can have a setback tomorrow.
Right.
And I try to increase my ability to bounce back from these things by the way I set everything up. Like I never feel like I've completely accomplished and I'm good. I always feel like
there's more.
I'm never good.
Yeah.
I have that aspect in my mind. There's that fear because of where I come from. I feel like, it's only a matter of time, not a matter of time, but there's an opportunity for me to go back there, and I can thrive there because that's where I grew up. Like I grew up in the hood.
Yeah.
I grew up around drug addicts and alcoholics and people selling drugs and people, going to prison and murders and all that stuff. I grew up around all that stuff. I went to school with them. So I'm comfortable there. When I go back home to the hood, it's all love. It's like I never left, so I always try to set something in my structure to be able to catch me if I fall. I don't fall too far. There's always a net, and it's just by design. If I fall from that other net, I'm gonna fall into another net. It's hard to do because to do that, you got to make sacrifices, and you have to have delayed gratification along the way, right? You can't just, like with my businesses, I can't just strip money and buy cars and boats and trips. And you can't do that.
It won't last.
Yeah. It's fleeting.
It's short term.
And then my structure, I'll have to be, basically to do that, I'll have to be working on it all day long. And then now, something's going to give. It'll be my family. It's going to be the first thing that's going to give.
Yep.
Why? Because I want to have a boat for what?
Yeah.
Like if I want to go fishing, I'll call one of my buddies that have a boat.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's the thing is the older you get, I think you start to realize what really is important and what really doesn't matter. And, when you're younger, you always want to impress people. You always want to be, at least I did, you always want to obtain a certain status for a certain reason. And it wasn't until I started getting to a point where I want to accomplish these things, not necessarily for myself, to say that I did it, but because I know if I don't, I'm not reaching my potential. Mm-hmm. And then number two, which I think should actually be number one, is like, I feel like by reaching certain goals and landmarks, I can help other people.
Sure. And that's the main reason why I'm in a leadership position, is because I'm a rehabber, get it from my mom. I enjoy fixing people and building people up, I tell the cadets in the academy, I'm like, look, the first day I addressed them, I said, my goal is one of y'all to be my boss one day. That's my goal. Will it happen? I don't know, but just know that my mindset is that I'm going to unload everything I have in me so y'all can be my boss one day. And if I do that, then I know I accomplished my goal.
And that's important because there's a lot of people in leadership roles that withhold information, that withhold knowledge because they want to maintain at the top. I know guys in the jiu-jitsu community that literally won't show certain techniques or won't show certain moves. It's like, if I learn something, I'm instantly, and he'll tell you, like, I just learned this last week, like, let's drill it because it can help everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So on the self actualization, that's a hard word to say, but you self actualize and you're able to feel comfortable enough in your own skin, in your own environment, in your situation to be able to start helping people. What I find challenging is to get that information out to these people and to have them be okay coming to you and asking you for stuff, right? So I try to always put it out there, like, if you want to talk, come talk to me. Like,
Be
come
approachable.
on. Yeah, like being approachable is very hard because they think that they're bothering you and you're busy and you're this and that. And for me, it's like, no, let's go have coffee one day. Let's talk. You know, there's a little boy at some school in an impoverished area right now that is me 20 some odd years ago, right? I'm looking for that person. Where is he? Where is she? I want to find her because I want to do something, say something. I can give her some kind of nugget or knowledge to make her realize you can do whatever you want to do, anything that you want to do, but you got to be willing to work. And that's all it is. It's just putting the work in, reading the books if you want a promotion,
Eating right if you want to lose weight.
eating right
Working
if you
out
want to lose weight, working out, balance, showing up when you don't want to get up, right? Like, you don't want to get up today and go do this. That's the thing that you need to be doing.
Right.
That's the hill. I don't want to do this. Do it. It's good for you. It's only going to last. When you do the most difficult things in your life, how long does it really last? And when you look back on it, was it, you're done studying. When you look back on it, was it that bad?
Oh, hell yeah.
For me, what I would say
but
is,
no,
in the totality of your career, this was
yeah,
one small
and
part.
that's what I used to tell my wife. I would text her, and I would say 6 months for the next 20 years, 3 months, 1 month, 1 week, and you know, it's funny you say that. In the moment, in the storm, it feels like it's never gonna end, but once it does, it's like, that wasn't so bad, you know.
I bet the next day after you took the test, you like, what am I gonna do now?
Oh shit, I'm still like that. I was like, why am I doing
Netflix?
Yeah,
Watch Netflix.
I watched. Yeah, we watched the Johnny Manziel story yesterday. That was the first time I've actually sat down in a year and a half and watched TV for like over an hour in the station.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I think that's a great note to end on. I think that's a great message for anybody that's out there listening, whether you're a leader or whether you're somebody that is under. You know, in a subordinate situation, a student, follower, like, you can't be afraid to go to your superior. You can't be afraid to go to the higher up or the vet or, you know, whoever it is and ask for help, because that's the only way you're going to get better.
That's right.
You know, so, well, thanks for coming on the show. Before we end, I definitely want to give you guys another shout out. You know, Protect Seamless Gutters. I can honestly say, like, once those gutters went up, man, I mean, I sleep better at night now. When the rain comes, I'm not hearing it, you know, pounding on the concrete outside. And I kind of feel bad for some of the people that have gutters up in our neighborhood, because, man, when you look at my gutters and how, like, heavy duty they are, like, it's legit. You know, they're good. They're good. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, this is the man to talk to. 361-533-3012.
Yep, 3012.
And just hit them up. They also have a Facebook page. We're more than happy to direct you guys to that if you have any questions. So as usual, I'm an open book, open door. You know, message me on my personal, message me on the Charge the Line podcast. That's all we got for today. T, you got anything you want to end with?
What's your superpower? What'd you pick?
My superpower, man, I had it when you said it, and then I was like, I got distracted. But I know you said invincibility, which is actually a great one. Man, you know, because when you think superpower, you think like something that, like, strength or speed or endurance or something like that. But I think for me, my superpower is just being able to harness that ego. I think that's a big one. I think you will find the most progression in life when you're able to take a step back, realize that although you may know a lot, you don't know everything, and that although this person doesn't know a lot, they can still teach you something. And once you're able to do that, man, your progress is going to go through the roof. So that's
What's
what
your
I got.
superpower, Tony?
I'm gonna be the best communicator.
There you go. Well, you already put,
Communications, man, is always everything and everything we did. So yeah.
well, thank you guys for tuning in, man. This episode is going to drop on Monday. We'll have it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So check it out. If you got any questions, you want me to relay to Chief Belyou here, just message me, man, and we'll get it. We'll get it to him. And thank you guys for tuning in. As usual, stay blessed. And don't forget, charge that line.
Charge your line. Thanks for having me.